Okay, I'm excited for the webinar today, and we've got two special guests that are going to be talking about a topic that I think a lot of people should be either thinking about doing or start doing, and I think these guys are going to be able to get you the information, the wisdom that you need to really make that decision. So I want to introduce Tom Jenkins and Amir from Cloud Task.
Jack, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, really pleased to be on here. Looking forward to talking to all of you out in the open world.
Absolutely. We've got United States here, we've got the United Kingdom, and now we've got Colombia in the mix. So this is like this is like an international webinar.
Well, the world's becoming a smaller place, but companies still rely on B2B leads to generate revenue. So we're all on the same team. Proves
that model. So what we're going to talk about today is, what I like to call is like the new way of prospecting, which is essentially, in a way, lead generation, which is very interesting for a lot of like laggard mindsets to probably wrap their minds around this, and how, something on a website is actually like a top prospecting sales tool. And these guys are going to kind of, show us how that works, how it's defined, and really take a deep dive into some actual strategies. So I want to start off, and I'm going to put this to you, Tom, to start. But, is inbound sales activity replacing outbound sales activity? Why or why not?
Well, to me, it's not really about one replacing the other. They both have big advantages, and utilizing a combination of the two is what, obviously there's a lot of different schools of thought, but that's what we believe is going to bring us the best results. And if you're getting inbound leads but not reaching people outbound, there's no point in having those leads. Likewise, if you're cold calling all day without content, prospects will have no idea what you even do when you're getting them on the phone. So yeah, combinations really where I see things going forwards, and maybe Amir can add stuff on top of that.
Yeah, well, if you really look at the term inbound sales, it was essentially coined by HubSpot, right? And HubSpot being a factory of inbound, it shows that they kind of came up with the idea like, well, look, we're preaching inbound, but we know as an organization that the people who believe in our methodologies need to be doing outbound sales. So they called it inbound sales. And what their spin on it really is that the difference between inbound sales and outbound sales is context. It's understanding the buyer's journey. And that's kind of the major difference, where they're aligning sales and marketing to both understand where the buyer is. So, at certain times, the difference between outbound sales and inbound sales can actually be the receiver on the side, meaning like Jack, right? Like if you know about Cloud Task and you know about some of our services, when we call you, that could be an inbound sales call because you know of us, right? But if I call you and you don't know of us, then it kind of has that term outbound, and that's kind of where it's blending, and it all comes back down to the buyer knowing who you are and conforming to them. I think that's the thing that keeps it together, and it's almost as if after the activity, you find out whether it was inbound or outbound based on the results you get, and you kind of want to work your way towards inbound, meaning they know of you, you understand them, you're not selling to them, and vice versa. You'll have probably a higher closing ratio, right? I think that's kind of the big difference.
Somebody asked me the other day, like, what does it mean to be cold? And I said, to do something cold. And I said,
yeah,
well, if I have absolutely zero clue that you exist, it's cold, right? Now, if I know that you exist, or I have some inkling of information or visibility over time into something you've done or something you talk about, then it's not cold anymore to me. So yep. I think that's where we're like kind of like delineating the lines. Is like guys that are picking up the phone and calling somebody that has no clue who you are. That's a tough game, right?
Yep.
But you're picking up the phone, and I'm going to use. I know we'll talk about drift a lot, in probably in this. But like one of the things I would say is like, for a long time I didn't know what drift did. Right? I just knew that David Cancel, Dave Gerhardt, these guys, like they were putting out some really good content. They had a podcast, and believe it or not, like I got a call from one of their sales reps, and it was an easy conversation. I'm like, holy crap, like, I don't know, to be fair, like, I don't even know what you guys really do. Like, I see you everywhere now, but it was really easy for them to have a conversation with me just about the Wisdom podcast, right? Like, just about kind of some of the stuff that they're doing, some of the cool content they're putting out. And it went right into an organic conversation. So I think you brought up a good point, is delineating between what is cold and what's not, and then how do you warm something up so that you can interrupt somebody's day, but they don't feel like you're actually impeding on them.
Yeah, your example, if you look at your example, you had no idea what Drift did, but you were aware of them, right? So it was very easy to go from awareness to consideration because you were not being called out. Who's Drift, right? The conversation probably went, oh, I've heard of you guys, but maybe can you explain what you do, right? So it was more natural. And something like that happened to me, I think 5 years ago when I was in the retail business, when I had a call from Amazon, right? Amazon Marketplace called me. And I never sold on Amazon before, but when they called me, I knew exactly who they were, and I knew that this is something that I can consider. So that was actually a faster cycle because Amazon called me. I sell products, great. Very easy for me to jump into, okay, well, how much does this cost, right? What's the monthly fee? Had some other company, not Amazon, called me, I've probably been like, who are you? What do you do, right? And it's the speed of the sales cycle. It has a lot to do with marketing, right? And marketing and sales working together.
Okay, so this is going to go into our next question. And, actually before we started, we talked about this, but I think this is interesting. So when you talk about the idea of not being cold, essentially what has to happen first. And so some people call it prospecting. Some people call it lead generation.
Sure.
Now there's, it used to be separated by inbound and outbound, but now it seems like the lines are blending. And here's the point is we're talking about how do you make something not cold? Well, there's obviously some marketing involved to get in front of people over and over and over, to get them to be able to say, oh, hey, I know who you guys are when you do interrupt their day. So what do you see a difference, or do you see these two blending, lead generation and prospecting?
I think a lot of it has to come down to your definition of lead generation and prospecting. So how do you define it first, right? And how I define it is lead generation to us would be collecting companies that meet our buyer profile and personas within those profiles. And I would call those leads, right? I would say this is a lead because I know that this company, it meets our size. It's a SaaS company, right? They do above 3 million in sales. And then I'm talking to the VP of sales who meets our sales leaders persona, or demand gen who meets our marketing leaders persona. And then for us, prospecting would be the act of then taking that defined list of leads that we know has a higher probability that we can help them, right? And then putting them into that journey at the point where they say, okay, CloudTask, I know that you guys exist now, and I'm curious to know if you could help my problem. And I think the second that somebody is willing to let you learn about their problem is the second that they become a prospect. So I think they work together, and it also has a lot to do with how you define the terms, right?
Interesting. I'd love to get your take on that, Tom.
Yeah, it's very, come from a similar viewpoint to Amir. It's, I guess, prospecting, kind of how we do it at CloudTask is, have a team of expert researchers kind of on the pulse, analyzing the data behind all our current customers, current clients, and working out exactly who it is we should be targeting. And obviously in today's sales world, today's lead generation world, things are constantly changing, and they're on the pulse looking for the trends that are coming in the future as well. And once they've working with marketing, working with sales, have worked out who that persona is then what channels can we reach it on? Is it social selling, sales, chat, outbound calls? What's going to be the best approach? And then it's about, getting to the lead generation side of, we know who we want, what companies, what people we know who likes us, make it about them and reach out to them and turn them into leads.
Yeah. Yeah, depending on the industry, sorry, Jack. Sometimes you need to speak to people to know that you can help them. Other times, there's information that you can find out that shows you that you already know you can help them. And I'll give you a good example, right? Let's say that with CloudTask, we work a lot in the sales teams. We join as SDRs, BDRs, account executives, right? So if I know that somebody has a job posting on their website for an SDR, I can gather from that they already have the need. They have the budget, they have the timeline. So you can almost jump into the fact saying, I understand that you're hiring somebody. This means that you have repeatable outcomes. This means that you have set goals for that person, right? You're not going to put a job posting just because it feels nice to have a job posting, right? So your language can be different. Other times, you might not know And let's say you're a technology company like, Ring, what's the company called? I forgot the name of the company, but there's some dialers out there, right? That you need to know that the company not only has Salesforce, but they have the enterprise version of Salesforce, right? So you might need to ask a question and then know that, if they have enterprise Salesforce, then you could help them. But if they don't, you're wasting their time. They're not a prospect.
So what I hear you guys saying is that lead generation is the data and the insights, and prospecting is the activity around the data and the insights that you get.
I would agree. Yeah, for us, right? For us, it means then making them a prospecting to make them a prospect, right?
Because I think one thing we all forget about is that whatever you want to call it, prospecting, lead generation. I mean, the main objective for both of those and anything that we do is a sales conversation, right? So how do we get to that sales conversation? I think we got to quit getting so worried about sales only does outbound, right? Sales doesn't do inbound, or sales doesn't do, sales has to do it all, because the one thing and one thing only that you're measured on in sales is a sales conversation that leads to an opportunity that leads to a sale, right? So how do you get that sales conversation? Well, it's getting harder and harder, and there's more channels that you need. Well, I would argue that it's not getting harder and harder. I actually think it's getting easier and easier, but people are getting lazier and lazier, right? So the moral of the story is you have a lot more places to reach people versus the phone. If somebody didn't pick up the phone or answer an email back in the day, you had no opportunity to get into a conversation with them, right? But now people live on their mobile devices. They're on so many different ways. There's so many different ways to communicate. You got to figure out the puzzle to figure out where they want to communicate with you, and that's how you got to get to them, right? Right message,
Mm-hmm.
right platform. So, one of the things I guess that would be an argument is a company's website, right? So, marketing typically owns a company's website. Like 3 years ago, they wouldn't even let sales near the company website, right? Like it would be like it would blow up if marketing knew that. So now there's a new thing that's going on, and this is what we're really going to get deep into, and that is, using your website to create sales conversations through all the different things that you're doing, marketing and sales, prospecting. So let's dive into that. Who should on a company's website, if you have a chat bot or chat box or whatever you want to call it, who should run that? Sales, marketing?
Well,
that's a good question.
That is great. And I think it really depends on your product and service and how you want to do it. At CloudTask, we work with clients managing their sales chat 24/7. And we obviously also have our own sales chat. And we've seen clients do it in different ways, and they've both been effective. So to tell you how we do it at CloudTask, marketing runs the bot side. So if we're putting a bot straight onto the website, marketing owns where that bot's going to be placed. Is it on a pricing page, blog page, home page? And also the bot's also there to capture details, engage people, and maybe even qualify in the first place. And to do that, you've got to have the content and the playbooks, the scripts, whatever you want there. And marketing on our side owns that. Once somebody's engaging with the bot, going through the questions, maybe typing questions in, that's where we have sales step in. And we've found that to be a really effective process for us.
Yeah. And it also has a lot to do, asking that question has a lot to do with the persona that you speak to, right? And Tom might have a different view than myself, because of, he's a marketing persona, I'm a sales persona. And what does that even mean these days, right? Because that term I just said is confusing, right? But it kind of all steps back to the website, right? Because if you look at a website, it's evolved, and it's evolved into a way that for years people have been saying it's your store, it's your brand, it's your image. But that's only becoming more and more true. And I think a website is starting to behave in a way that a retail store would in a mall. People are becoming so used to it that they're interacting with it in a way that is mimicking the way they would interact walking in and maybe trying in sneakers. And this is where that line blurs, because this is an opinion, right, Jack? So not everybody's going to see this, and maybe marketing leaders won't, right? But at the end of the day, marketing and sales have a common goal of attracting customers, right? And they do it in different means. And to me, I do a lot of analogies to the Marines, right? Because the Marines have the guys who storm the beach, and then they have the air support and the plane support, right? And that's how I see marketing and sales. I see more of salespeople where it's more of the personal one-on-one working in hand with the Air Force, like which is marketing. But now, when it comes to the website ownership, what's changing ownership of who owns what is really just the speed at which people are coming to the site and wanting to become sales ready. Because if someone comes to your website and they don't want to talk to a person, they don't want answers now, they want to fill out a form, they want to be nurtured, they don't want to talk to people, they want a newsletter once a week, they want that. Marketing owns that, right? But if they want answers today, sales owns that. So I think the concept is that the website is for both sales and marketing, and that the systems have to be generated where, depending on the person coming into that website, they choose who they speak to. They speak to sales if they're in a consideration stage or they want to go through fast. They speak to marketing if they want to just have that automated. And I think that's kind of the big opportunity for sales and marketing leaders. It's to unite and agree first that they both are a team, and then agree that it's the buyer that chooses who owns them.
Yeah, so let's just to clarify, so if anybody's on here and I just was thinking about this and you're thinking hey, what is chat? If you go to a website and it pops up and you're talking to a live person, or sometimes not live, but it looks like it's live. So this is where I guess if I was a sales leader or marketing leader, because these technologies aren't cheap, right? I mean, Drift is not cheap. There's no way around it. Now, if you have good leads coming in, it's cheap, right? But I think a lot of people struggle with, okay, how much traffic do I have coming to my website? How do I determine whether it's worth it to have this strategy? Is there any, do you guys have this conversation, or is this something that you guys measure? If I'm thinking, hey, I want to do chat, but is it worth the investment? How do you know how much traffic you have? Then I'm just going to add this question in there is how do you get traffic to it? How do you get the right traffic to it to make it effective so that you can get to that next step, which is an actual conversation with the right people?
Yeah. So I think there's a few constants that will help answer that question, right? I think LTV is one of them, right? What is your lifetime value to customer? And I think that there's a constant force that if you have a higher LTV, the more sales should get involved, because there's a higher lifetime value for a customer, and it makes sense to have somebody speaking and learning and building a relationship, right? And then I would say a lower LTV or a product that has lesser value, a quick sale, $10 a month, probably the relevance of having traffic would become more important, right? So it's the higher LTV traffic becomes less, always important, right? You always want to bring people to your website, but now it starts making sense with lower traffic. If you have a lower cost of product, the value proposition starts to go up with higher traffic, right? But back to your second question, outbound or inbound sales can feed that wheel, right? So it's a balancing act.
Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, just building on what Amir just said just then, how outbound and inbound sales works together to bring traffic to your website. The amount of people we've messaged on LinkedIn or we've called now, and even who maybe haven't answered, but then have spoken to our bot, coming to the website saying, your COO sent me a LinkedIn request. Can you tell, and just trying to find out what you do. It just shows how outbound does bring inbound to you. And we've had quite a lot of people speak to our bot saying things like that. And our sales chat, our people.
And that's the beautiful part about Drift or technologies like Drift, is that you're starting to actually get data that you never had before. And you're starting to find out how your buyers like to communicate. You'll find that X percentage don't want to talk to people. They just want forms. They just want appointments. You'll find that a percentage need you to speak to them to become comfortable. We have talked to people where they would never become a client or customer unless they were able to get pricing and agreements on the first 30 seconds. So it gives you, I think it gives you a way for your website to speak to both people, right? Because it's a bot and a human, right? And it's the people who want to talk to the bot will talk to the bot. People who want to talk to a human will talk to a human. And then after every month, you can actually see the data on who's having conversations, who's not, and then you can see the speed at which they're closing and what they look like, right? So you can also build data on how to approach people, right? Because if a person who does not want to talk to a human looks like this, they look and act like this, then your messaging to those people with marketing, with sales can be, come and have a conversation. Or come talk to the bot, they'll answer all your questions. When if the person talks to the bot, or talks to human, looks like this and acts like that, then your messaging to them with marketing and sales can be, come talk to a live person, right? So it starts giving you data on how your personas, speak to you, and it allows you to actually talk to both of them. That's what we want.
As a marketing agency that runs, a lot of different people's websites and a lot of driving traffic to their websites, I think one of the hardest things is that from a marketing perspective and from a sales perspective, is that you work so hard to drive people to this place, right? And, before we had these chats where somebody could, the experience was, damn it, I want to talk to somebody. You had to go fill out a contact us for request form, right? And then you had, sales teams, a lot of them still didn't get it. So you're waiting on somebody to get back to you. Or if you've got an issue with the product or something. But now is like, you can capture all of that traffic. Because it used to be you look at your Google Analytics and go, oh my God, we had 1,200 people to the website, and we talked to 2 of those people. We could only identify 7 of the 1,200, right? Well, the game has changed, right? Now it's about the experience. I mean, it's like it's why we book an Uber on our phone, right? We don't want to talk to anybody. Right? Yeah. We want to know everything. I think where there's a misconception is that in bigger B2B complex sales, that people want to have this long sales conversation. I don't believe that, right? I believe that that's changing. And I know that from personal experience because we buy lots of technologies. We're in the process of helping other people sell their technologies. I've noticed that people know what they want now versus, rolling the dice where you be able to go outbound and get somebody to take the plunge and take a risk on a $20,000 software. They just don't do that anymore, right? They kind of know, they've got a buying committee, they know. They come to your website. Now, here's the question. How do you, if I come to the website and my experience is, hey, I just want to get a few answers to my questions, right? I think the ultimate goal is, how do we pull them offline? Because isn't that the ultimate goal for any company with their sales?
Yeah. Listen, it starts with the first questions, right? Like, what brought you to our website? Just browsing? I'm in the need to hire somebody. A few questions right off the bat can actually, it's like coming to a crossroads when you're traveling, right? Like, if you make a left, you're coming in the right direction. If you make a right, you're in the wrong direction. So something as simple as being straightforward and saying, hey, I know you came to our website. I don't know if you're here to buy or to research. Tell me, right? And that right there will separate the people who are just browsing versus the people where I want answers now, right? And that crossroad, that decision tree, that first set of questions can help you with those offline conversations that you want to gain, giving the buyer control, right? Because you're not tricking them. You're respecting their answers. I'm just browsing, respecting that, right? I want answers now, you're respecting that. So it's giving people the control to really tell you, hey, this is who I am, this is what I want. Now give me what I need the way I want it, right? And people like that.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I like that. So are you building like script workflows for your SDRs or for your marketing team or whoever's running the actual chat? Do you have scripts for them?
A little bit, right? A little bit, because I think the goal in sales and marketing, whether you're the CEO or an SDR entry level, is repeatable outcomes. I think we all want guidelines, right? And I think consistency is very important. So we are creating scripts, but the scripts have they have the freedom to go out of line because there is a human element, right? So it's a starting point. And I think that's how all templates always should be, right? Whether it's a sales template, a template for sales chat, it should be a beginning point, right? Because think about this, right? If you come talk to me, you might be engaging some conversations, but now I have your name, I know you are, I can have your website up, and then based on what I see and based on my understanding of how I can help you, I can veer off script, right? Based off you, not based off me trying to have a goal of selling, but based on the fact that I understand how my product can help you, right? So it's a guideline, and we are creating scripts.
Yeah. Keith, just going to add to that quickly. With the scripts, we've always got them and we want those repeatable outcomes. But one of the reasons people love sales chat is it meets them where they are on their terms and they want answers to their questions, not a general marketing question. So yeah, you've got, the guys always there to kind of step away and give the prospects exactly what they want
Yeah.
away from the script.
And then relationships are built. Like we've seen actually people come back to the chat and say, I want to speak to Allison. I chatted with Allison, and Allison knows who I am, right? So I think we're also noticing that people are building one-on-one relationships with chat, right? Because it's a channel that we're all used to, right? We've Jack, I think you and I have probably been on Instant Messenger at 13, right? I think we're part of that same club, right? So we're very common. We're very used to having conversations with people on chat and knowing that there are real people behind it.
Yeah, and to be fair, like it's actually a really good tool for your salespeople because you can quit wasting a lot of time in that awkward stage of like, okay, well, let's find out more about your company. Why are you guys looking for this? I mean, if somebody does chat right, they could literally send you over everything that you need to talk about. You get right on that call and you're like, okay, here's the problem I know that you have. Here's how we can fix it.
Yeah, we got a stat from one of our biggest clients in sales chat where the leader that we report to actually said something to us along the lines of an MQL that has had a sales chat conversation has a 40% chance, higher chance of turning into a deal, which is a pretty big stat, right? And a lot of this data is new. So I think in 2 to 3 years we're going to have a lot of this data, and we're going to see that sales chat is increasing the shortening the sales cycle and increasing the closing rate. I think now it's the early adopters that will really benefit from that.
So this is a good question for you, Tom. So we talked about getting people to the website, right? It's like, but I think the problem is that, and we hear this from companies, is you really have to optimize how you get people there, right? Like what's the content that gets them there? Because at the end of the day, you just don't want people just chatting you to chat you they can't buy. And that happens. We see it with our customers. I'm sure you've seen it, right? So how do you optimize and understand what content converts the highest? Because I'm guessing you guys are tracking that, right? Like it came in through this ebook or it came in through this blog post, and then they came over to this chat. Are you tracking all that? Are you analyzing that and then using content moving forward to make sure you're getting the right people there?
Yeah, 100% tracking all that. So we've just moved on to the third iteration of our website and looking at exactly what blog pages people are coming onto and getting them higher up the page. We had a lot of ebooks that people weren't using, but some of the ones that people loved were kind of at the bottom of the page. So we've just put everything that people were looking at downloading right where the prospect wants it. And it's similar with kind of sales chat and what content, if the bot does start, what content we're putting first and straight to them as well. And we're constantly analyzing all that data and seeing, we've made some, as with all companies, some bad moves, but on the whole, we've made some great ones as well and got it right and keep on optimizing and keep on developing.
Amir, I guess from a sales perspective, I'd love to hear your point of view.
I think from my point of view, I think marketing looks at the data that they have, right? And sales looks at the bigger picture. And I think the big picture is that there's a constant force now of, speak to me, speak to my problems, right? Be more transparent. So I think overall, every organization needs to start becoming people want to educate themselves. They want more information. And I think HubSpot did a great job with their pricing page, right? They have a pricing page that's very clear. This is our pricing, these are the costs. And then that constant works, right? So I think we're always trying to drive a website to that. And then we're using the data, the granular data to improve within that principle, right? And you're also discovering new titles, right? Because sometimes you think that this person makes a decision on that, but with the way that titles are evolving, how they describe their job, it's changing. You start finding out that in fact it's a different person who owns what you thought they owned. So you kind of have to leave a bigger net and only kind of close in when you really have that confirmation, which Tom is talking about, And knowing that there's no perfect thing, right? I think you're going to lose somebody when you make an adjustment.
So this is an interesting play because I think, you still see this in a lot of companies. They waste a lot of money on content marketing and they get they might get leads, but they don't know how to nurture them. There's just such a process in actually taking somebody that signs up and getting them to actually get into a sales conversation. But with what's going on right now with live chat and so forth, I mean, you can get essentially instant sales conversations if you're doing this correctly. Now, differentiating, because I really believe this, and I get beat up all the time by sales leaders, but I believe that salespeople should be creating content. Now let me preference. I don't necessarily always believe they should be writing the content. I think marketing's job is to support sales and make them famous, in my opinion. But if I hear five obstacles that I keep hearing over and over, and I go to Tom in sales and I say, listen, will you write, here's 5 rebuttals that I keep having to overcome. Can you write a piece of content? Here's what I think should be in it. I'm going to label these 5. Here's my key points. Tom takes that, writes it, puts it in my name, and I put it on LinkedIn, right? I think that's the new way of marketing, because essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my name on it. I'm going to build the credibility, and I'm going to use it in my prospecting emails to drive them to my LinkedIn profile so they can see what I'm capable of doing for them versus driving them to the website all the time. So now you've got salespeople that can use this content to drive them over to the site and then capture them into the sales. So, I mean, there's so many different workflows. Are you guys seeing salespeople use this content and then capturing it on the other end, which is on the website, because they're the one driving the traffic?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that we created, because at the end of the day, no matter who you are, you're only as good as your tools and information you have. But we create something called a content library, right? And what that library does is it very clearly defines which content we have that's approved, right? Whether it's a blog article, case study, ebook, webinar, and then who it should go to when. So then we can focus the training on a salesperson, on not becoming a marketing person, not becoming a writer, right? But on identifying the person and where they're at, right? Because if you, Jack, are, let's say that you're very social, you're on LinkedIn and you're creating conversations about B2B sales, right? And a sales guy can say, hey, you know what, Jack, he's aware of B2B sales. He maybe even considered it. He might go then look at the content repository and says, okay, this is for a leader, that might be considering B2B chat. And we might post something on a comment being like, hey, here, Jack, see these results, right? Here's the data. So I think it all comes down to the understanding how we can help people from a sales perspective, and then marketing and sales being one team. And really, listen, if you have a sales guy who's an amazing writer and amazing at creating, maybe he has more freedom than the person who's really good at being persistent. And everybody has their talent, right? And I think it's understanding who you have on your team, being able to give some freedom to the people who have some specialized skills, but then also giving people the assistance from marketing who are very good at having their eyes open for compelling events and people. I think the marketing, I think the content worksheet that we create, the library, is really helpful for what you just said.
Tom, I'll let you swing at that. What do you think about salespeople and helping them, give them ammunition, I would call it, right? Value ammunition to get people to the site so that you can spark up that conversation.
Yeah, 100%. Some of our best content pieces have come. Sales at the end of the day are the ones who are out there on the phone, on emails, on LinkedIn, gathering all the information, learning, what people's pain points are, or maybe what they don't even know. Marketing are the experts at actually creating that and turning it into, whatever it is out there. And, just for example, Amir's LinkedIn profile, maybe the best point, him posting an article about his challenges and how he sees he can help people. So that's where we've seen some of our best traction. And yeah, it's just sales and marketing alignment. The closer you get that, we're working on it every week and 2 calls a week to make it work. And it's seen some great results for us.
And
I wanted to go ahead. Sorry, Jack.
You probably hear a common theme here is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to switch mindsets for people that are like, how does this all work? Why would salespeople create content? Because there's, at the end of the day, there's a funnel and there's technologies to help you get to an offline conversation. But the problem most people have is how do we get people there? And the traditional way of doing that, which is talking about yourself all the time and only having people from a marketing perspective, that's getting old. Like people just they're not following for it anymore. So you really have to really make people famous. And a lot of times it's got to be your salespeople. You want to drive and make people want to have a conversation with your salespeople. And there's a lot of easy ways to do that without taking them off of their job and what they're doing. You have to just make it efficient. But go ahead.
Well, I think the goal is to not make them salespeople. The goal is to make them experts.
Exactly.
Right? So they're salespeople when they're running around without context, just disrupting people, right? They're helping people when they know exactly who they're helping. And here's a good real-time example, I think, of how sales and marketing communicate and content, what you just asked, because a lot of the time who creates the content also has to do with bandwidth, right? And who's available, right? Maybe there's a topic that I just love, right? I'm the best person to write it. Or maybe I just have an idea I want and I can give it to Tom. But recently, especially with sales chat, being that it's kind of a blurred line between, is it the sales leader? Is it the marketing leader? Who makes that decision? What we notice is that during some campaigns, we were receiving a lot of interest in our ebooks from not only marketing leaders, the band gen leaders, but also sales leaders, right? But then being in the forefront of sales, I spoke to marketing and I said, marketing, you know what? We don't have any material educating a sales leader on why he should make this decision, on how it helps him, right? Because depending on who shows interest, you have to help them, right? Because it's not our job to say, no, you're the sales leader, don't talk to us about this, it's the marketing leader. Or you're the marketing, no, it's the sales leader. It's our job to understand that whoever is interested in this first, has the right of ownership. And we have to explain to them not only how we help them, but how we also help their counterparts, right? So that was a recent example of how going to market then came back and said, hey guys, look who's interested in our documents. It's VP of sales, it's sales op leaders. We're not speaking to them. We're not telling them how this helps them. We're not telling them how they should present this. You can tell them, this is how it helps you. This is how it helps you if you own this part. If you don't own the right to your website, this is how you can speak to your marketing to get them on your same team. So you have to really understand the dynamics between teams and how to speak to them with content. And that really helps you become an expert and get away from being a salesperson.
And to optimize actually using the chat correctly and actually getting in a conversation. I mean, if you don't have the right content that you're driving people there, or you don't have a strategy around that, then it's just going to be a waste of time, right? Unless people are referring business to you, right? Which is most companies are, that's just not happening. Okay, so here's a question. So, I'd like to hear some results, right? So, what do you guys track the percentage of people that come to the website that actually turn into a sales chat? And then let's go a little bit deeper than that. Of those people that you talk to in a sales chat, and you can give examples of clients, or because I know you guys do this for a lot of people, but on average, then what happens? How many people that you talk to on a sales chat actually in an offline conversation, turn into an opportunity, which close? I know that's a lot of numbers, but if you give examples, because I think that's what people need to hear, is they need to understand that process and what those numbers sound like.
Yeah, spot on. So I don't have all the exact data that you've just asked in front of me, but I can give, I was recently reviewing one of our biggest clients, Ipswich, who use our sales chat services. And Amir, correct me if this number's wrong, but I think they have about 150,000 website visitors a month.
Yep.
And so through Q1 2018, we developed 150 active opportunities through that. That's kind of somebody who's qualified, fits the bill, ready to speak to sales moving forward. From those 150, I think 80 of them moved to sales qualified leads, and it led to us opening over $1 million in open revenue through sales chat in Q1 alone. I don't know how many went on to close, but I know a good number.
To build on that, I think what was more impressive, because we know those data because we're working that sales chat, but what we don't know is the comparison between the MQLs that fill out forms, right? But what we have heard is also that compared to the percentage that fill out forms, they're 40% more likely to turn into sales if they had a sales chat conversation versus being nurtured by newsletters and marketing automations. So that's a very big stat for us. And I think that you'll probably see us as an organization, becoming more leaders with these data, the new stats that are coming in. As we gain more results for our partners and our customers, we get more data, right? Because now we're more part of the team. But that's the more interesting thing. I think the big thing here is that there's going to be an increase in the amount of customers from an MQL from sales chat versus forms, and a lot of it has to do with what's new and old, right? I don't think there's I don't think it's a new topic that what has worked well in the past changes and evolves, right? And I think we all know that forums have been around for a long time, and I think that people are used to that, and they're expecting it, and they know what to expect, right? And it gives them, the buyer now kind of wants to go to the person who gives them information faster, and I think that makes a lot of sense to us, right? Because I think we're in that generation where we can see that, people are shorter videos work, shorter emails, fast, quick. But yeah, that's a big stat that we got. We know a lot of MQLs, but also the percentage of MQLs from sales chat versus traditional forms really increased the closing ratio, which is great.
Well, I think it's easy to understand why, right? I mean, it's a sales conversation. A lead, if somebody goes and fills out a form, there's no conversation being had.
Yeah.
The other thing is we have to play on people's curiosity and heat of the moment instincts. I mean, we're impulsive as human beings. So if we see something and we get excited about it, we want to talk about it, right? We want to get more information about it. And if we're not giving them more information at the time where they're excited, we all know that when the fly goes by, they'll be on to the next, or somebody will refer to a competitor. So I think it's just, the quickness that we can get them at the excitement, 100%. Right?
Yeah, especially if I have money to spend in Q2 for my budget. A drip campaign is not going to work for me, right? I might need to know now and get some paperwork in front of my decision makers, get approvals, because I have a set budget. This happened recently with somebody who came from sales chat.
How fast? I mean, how many? And let's just use you guys like personally, because I know you guys practice your, what you.
Yeah.
So how many conversations that start on chat for you guys would you say end up in, not in an opportunity stage, but at least offline in a sales conversation? Let's say you've got 100 of them. How many do you usually see move offline?
It's a high number. It's so our, technically we don't have humongous web traffic, right? We have actually low unique visitors. So what we find is that when we are having conversations with people, it's almost about 80% that actually turn into some sort of exploratory call, right? And the times that they don't, they're actually good, right? Because people actually would ask the budget and be like, oh, it's a little bit too high or too low or not what I was looking for, which is great because it saves time that we don't want to be exploring those people. So I think it's almost close to even 70 to 80% that are turning into at least an Explorer call. Not as high as customers, obviously, right? But Tom, would you say those numbers are close to accurate?
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly, and well above the 50% mark. And getting on to what you say, yeah.
And that's interesting. You said qualify in, qualify out. You could probably save your salespeople a lot of the time, especially the ones where, because I remember at Acton, of all places, like you get on these calls, like, oh, I set you an appointment, or we got you an appointment. It's like you get on there and you're like, oh my God, like you didn't ask them, like at least if they had a budget or what they were, So I think you could save your salespeople a lot of headache too from not putting them on the phone and wasting their dang time, right?
100%. Time is money.
So we're almost out of time here. So I want to kind of wrap this up. I think if you wanted to start, like, let's say that I'm a VP of sales and, I'm sold on this, or I'm a VP of marketing and I'm like, wow, you guys just convinced me. What's the next process? I mean, how do you need to, hire somebody for this? How do you set up a process? Where do you go buy the technology? What do you do? How do you place the people? Do you need to build scripts? Like, do you guys have content around that? Or, can you speak to that? If somebody, on the call right now is like, I want to get started, but I don't know where the hell to go.
Yeah. So there's two ways, right? I think there's a company that becomes aware of the tools. They want to do it themselves. They want to buy Drift. They want to implement the playbooks. They want to write the actual questions, the responses. They want to manage the SDRs and BDRs. And then there's an organization that works with a partner like CloudTask, where we actually would include the cost of Drift. We include the actual playbook creation. We have full-time content writers, and then we actually have trained SDRs and account executives that know how to actually use the sales chat. So we give people options, especially when we speak to them. Like sometimes people will just say, you know what? It's great that you have a sales chat team. We have SDRs and BDRs that aren't being productive, and we want them to be busy. So it's a good opportunity for us to be to give them something new to do. And knowing there's a learning curve, or there's people where, as it should be, right? If you have an SDR and account executive, they should be productive. They say, hey, I don't want to teach my guys who are finally doing what they're doing right something else. And I know that you guys are experts, and we can just get up and running, and we make it very easy to just include everything in the salary, and it's very straightforward. And typically we just do a 90-day hire where we're on board for 90 days, and then we review the results after to continue the relationship.
And you guys help people, like, because I think obviously, like, if you have a marketing automation platform or you have Salesforce or a CRM, you guys help people set that up so that you could track that through all the different stages.
1,000%. Yeah, it's part of the implementation. Because at the end of the day, too, for us to actually, you have to educate people, right? Because at the end of the day, let's say that you're doing inbound sales, Jack, right? And I'm a control freak, right? So I don't talk to you. But then I come to the website 6 months later and I end up buying from you. Who deserves credit? Was it you who reached out to me on LinkedIn, or was it, and that's where the lines get blurred. So we need to make sure that people know how to track the value of a visitor, right? Because if you're looking at a salesperson and only tracking qualified appointments and customers, you really actually are closing your eyes to the fact that everything's a full wheel, right? And if you pay, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Google per click or per website visit, should probably calculate that as a value for a salesperson bringing some to the website, right? So, we do help with all the integration, and a lot of it has to do with setting the right expectations and the right measurements to measure somebody's success, right? Because if you don't do that and it's not measured correctly, you might be responsible for a lot of sales, but it might not be making it way down to the decision makers, right?
Yeah, and if you're not able to show ROI on the program, then why are you doing it in the first place? I mean, we're kind of past that point, right?
Yeah.
Everything you're doing, you should be able to show like a pretty decent, accurate ROI, no matter what digital channel it is. So I think that's important, because you do have to make an investment. I mean, regardless if you're hiring and outsourcing it or you're doing it internally, I mean, it's going to take time and resources. And if you don't have a process around it, how are you going to prove that time and resources is worth the money, right?
Exactly. And you have to really you have to admit to yourself that sales and marketing have become one, right? I think if you're still separating the two departments in your mind, you're really losing the ability to calculate ROI, right, on both departments. I think you really have to make, you have to have a gut check and really commit to the fact that, okay, I do understand that it's becoming one. Let me learn how to measure both, right? And let me learn how to measure a conversation qualified lead, right? Because that's something it's not new. Advanced technology chat's been around for a while, but people have been measuring MQLs, SQLs, customers. Now you have to throw in a conversation qualified lead. That qualifier actually does help align marketing and sales, right?
And that's just that's just understanding how to define that.
Yeah. It's also a new measurement point, right? I think that's also a point where you're able to see that somebody who downloaded an ebook or interacted with an ad did come on and chat, right? So I think it's also a point where you can start seeing closer interactions between marketing and sales. When it's separate, it's harder to measure. When it's closer, it's easier to measure and see, the touch points. So it's bringing it closer together.
How can people get a hold of you guys if they have questions?
You go to our website and chat with us in real time.
There you go. We can test it out, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
Go for it. Please
I appreciate you guys coming on. I think
anytime.
There was some stuff that I even learned on this, but I think if you don't have chat on your site, well, especially if you've got good amount of traffic coming, like, you're killing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And if your competitor does, it could be deadly. So, all right, guys, well, have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers, Owen.